Let's begin with Quest Global. What do you do? In fact, I was trying to understand what you do. You talk about end-to-end engineering solutions. What do you actually mean by it, and what is the context in which you refer to it when you deal with aerospace and defense sector?
Sure. So, firstly, giving some intro about Quest Global. We are a company that was formed in 1997. Uh, Again, the sole purpose of the company comes from solving the customer problems. That's where our CEO Ajit Prabhu started off in addressing the customer problems, and the same value is still intact throughout the company. So we still go after customer problems whenever we talk to the customers, and uh, and over the years we have spread across multiple verticals. So one is aerospace defense, transportation that covers rail and automotive, semiconductors, and so on. So we support various verticals. That's how we are diversified. And again, we are a pure play engineering company. Engineering is all we do. And however, we use digital to solve engineering problems. So that's where our digital quotient also comes into picture. And we are a 20,000 plus company spread globally. So we are spread across the globe in multiple countries. And in India, we have quite a number of delivery centers across both in the Tier 1 and Tier 2 cities. And coming to your other question on uh, the end-to-end solutions. So the way we are looking at the industry today is especially we want to solve customer problem. See, we have a menu card of services. For example, when we support an aerospace OEM, aircraft OEM, or an aero engine OEM, we support them through the complete product life cycle, right from the concept initiation to design to analysis to manufacturing engineering to aftermarket. So we support them throughout the product life cycle. And we have various services that we can do. Okay, we can give you CAD services, or we can do you some process planning, or some manufacturing related activities, and so on. But how we are trying to evolve over the years was, how do we provide a bigger value to our customer? So that's where whenever we discuss with our customer, we try to focus on the problem statement rather than just providing resources. Because providing resources, I think anybody can do. So I don't see that as a very big challenge. So what we try to do was, we take those problem statements during the discussion with the customer, come back to our drawing board, we bring in multidisciplinary teams, we discuss on how do we solve this problem. So it might require multiple services to solve a problem. So, and how do we solve it, uh, and also ensure not to repeat it in certain manufacturing processes? Unless you go back and find the root cause and then fix the original problem, that's actually creating the actual manufacturing defect or anything. So it doesn't stop until you go back and actually solve the problem. So when we map out all the current process of the customer, especially related to a particular problem, then we see various services that would be required to fix certain parts of the overall cycle. And that's where our teams cohesively work together to understand the bigger piece. See, for example, if I talk to a designer, the designer may not be completely aware of what happens in the aftermarket. Or similarly, when I call in an aftermarket as SME, he or she may not be completely aware of what happens during the design phase. So that's where we bring in these SMEs together onto the drawing board and say, like, this is the problem that the customer is facing. And then we started from scratch on trying to understand the complete process cycle of how it happens and where in the cycle this particular problem arises. And then we try to find the actual root cause of how it happens and how it can be corrected. And that's where we are coming up with solutions. So we believe solutions is what will solve customer problems eventually. And that's where Quest Global would differentiate itself from other competition. So for majority of the customers that we work today, we are present with the top 6 of the global A&D companies, and all of our relations have been 15 plus years of strategic relationships. And what we believe is fewer customers, deeper relations, because we don't want to go around all the available aerospace and defense customers and then start doing bits and pieces. But our focus, again, this comes from the values that our CEO has engraved into all of us. So fewer customers, deeper relations. So we believe like if we are able to solve customer problems, that would get us business. And when I said like all our customers, we have 15 plus years of strategic engagement, and all of our, even our first customer is still our customer today, which is after 25, 27 years. So that kinds of explains the company because globally. So, and when we say like 15 plus years of partnership, it also means that we have a responsibility here. So we are not only solving the customer problem, but we have a responsibility to the world because we are working on a sensitive area like aerospace and defense. So it's not something like that happens when you're driving a car. Worst case, if the car breaks down, you can still park it on the road. But aircraft
It's
is
a
not like
zero
that.
defect industry actually. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So, and there's no deviation. So, and of course, the rules are also so strict. Be the FAA or ESA rules are so strict that we have to ensure that the quality is met at any cost. So, quality comes first, then all the other parameters comes in. So, so this is where we were trying to evolve into playing a bigger role for our customers because of our strategic relation with all our customers. We have that liberty to go back to them, discuss at a deeper level, ask those questions which are troubling them, and then come back, work as a solution, and then go back as a proposal saying like, okay, by doing this, this is what we can achieve. And if you also look at uh, our centers in India, so we always follow a local global approach, wherein our local resources in which are closer to the OEMs or companies that we work with. So we have some of the engineers working closely and interfacing the customer. And we do have majority of the teams based out of India supporting engineering from here. And we currently have about 7 offshore development centers for our global customers. And all of these offshore centers are multidisciplinary. So we support various activities, various things for the customer.
So
And
all of them are based in India. All these seven are based
yes,
in India.
yes, they're all based in India. So especially if you look at aerospace and defense, we are spread in Hyderabad, we are spread in Bangalore, Belgaum, and Ahmedabad. Of course, Quest Global as a company is there in many other places like Chennai, Trivandrum, and many other places. But right now, these 4 places is where A&D is currently operating. And of course, when you look at globally, we have multiple offices in the US and then UK, Europe, and also we cover Japan. So we are spread in that way, covering various aspects of the globe, especially in serving A&D global customers. So we are present with all the aircraft OEMs that you can talk about, the aero engine players, the Tier 1 owners or risk sharing partners who are
Mhm.
closely working with these aircrafts or the engines. So that's how our journey has been. And then, as we said, like we see solutions as a thing that keeps us moving further, and then that differentiates us. So we still go back to the basic. What is the problem? What is the solution? So I think that's what differentiates us.
Yeah. So can you actually give me a very specific example? I mean, you may not want to name your client, but
Mhm.
if you can just give me one practical solution where you did a end-to-end solution for a customer, some example that you can give me, because I mean, this is will enable people to understand what you actually do.
And yeah, yeah. So for example, uh, we do have performance improvement programs coming up on aircrafts and engines once they start flying in once they are into the market. So and there are specific requirements of these performance improvement programs on what they want to achieve. So we usually get a target of okay, we have to achieve a weight reduction of so and so pounds, or uh, achieve a performance improvement of so and so. So what we generally do is we group in the required departments that are required to achieve that end goal. And these multidisciplinary teams will work together in refining the current design or the design layout that has been provided by the customer. And they would critically review from all the aspects of how to get that performance. So for example, like back in the days, we used to iterate it with various kinds of CAE or the CAD softwares that are available, especially in terms of optimization and so on. But now we use AI. So we use AI to do something faster than what we were doing before. So, and again, when I say AI, we'll be very cautious in mentioning that we use AI not as a final decision maker, but we always use it as a human in the loop concept, because we still believe that the experience that humans gain cannot be replaced by AI. That's for sure. So we only try to replace the mundane work that humans does. Thereby, for example, if we are able to generate 100 design iterations in a span of 1 month, probably AI can help to do the same thing in 2 days or 3 days. But again, end of the day, all of this data is again coming back to the SME or the human to take the final call and make the final decision, because that's where all the checks happen, checks and balances, everything that happens, and that's how we use AI. So today we are using AI to kind of use use it for design optimization and things like that. And uh, technology is playing a role, especially in terms of speeding up the overall process of what we do today. I started my career as a structural engineer working for analysis of gas turbine components. So it's been 20 years me being in the industry. So if I go back and look at the same analysis I was doing 20 years ago, so much has changed. The softwares, the computer-aided engineering softwares that was supporting these uh, analysis have grown drastically. At the same time, technology like AI, ML have become very critical in terms of speeding up the overall process. And the interesting thing to note is, while the software and technology has become much more uh, matured in terms of giving you even better results, it also changed the perspective of the customer. Now the requirements from the customers are also changing. So back in the days, if we have just done a 2D layout analysis, it was pretty much sufficient. But now we are almost doing a complete 360. We are building a 360-degree model and then analyzing it, which means it would require much more efficient systems, better CPUs, and so on. So the complexity keeps increasing. So, coming back to the example I was giving. So, for the performance improvement, right from the design, what kind of iterations we need to do, this performance can be achieved. And then it goes to the secondary floor, the thermal engineers to identify the temperatures that are required or that are there in the aircraft or the engine, and then how that plays a role in the overall secondary flow of the air that's moving in. And then comes the analysis team, who would analyze and say from a stress or a stiffness point of view or a strength point of view, is it okay or not? So all of these teams cohesively work to give the end result. So back in the years, if you look back a few years ago, so it used to be like the customer still owns the complete performance improvement program, and then he or she would say, I would require 10 designers to do this, and then 10 designers would support them, and not necessarily all of them would know what the end goal is. And then similarly, once the design freezes, they would pass on to a different department. Probably we would have another 5 or 10 of our engineers supporting that particular department on a particular activity. But if you see, all of those are siloed systems, not integrated together. So we are bridging those gaps and then trying to see how much more value we can add. And at times it also has to do with multi-geo locations. So for example, one department could be in Italy, the other department could be in Japan, the other could be in US. So we are trying to bridge the whole gap, reducing the overall turnaround time, owning the problem, and then going back with a solution. And then when we go back with a solution, we also go with the trade study saying like, okay, we have these 10 different iterations. From a cost perspective, this is good. From a weight perspective, this is good. But from an overall performance point of view, this is even better. And then we also have our manufacturing engineering team who would do a rough order of magnitude cost and say like, yeah, is it better than the current cost or the better a better version of what we currently have. So this way we are integrating multiple teams within Quest Global to kind of generate value to the customer.
Right. So this aerospace and defense sector, is it a new division that Quest Global added on at a later stage, or was it right from the beginning you were part of? A&D was part of your portfolio. Why I ask this question is
So
your chairman Ajit Prabhu started off with GE, right? So
yes,
of course he was working in another division, not necessarily in the aerospace division,
yeah,
but so GE was essentially the starting point for, I would say, for Quest Global
West
itself, because
Global.
your CEO and chairman comes from that space. So,
You're right.
how did this journey into the aerospace and defense sector happen? That's what I'm trying to understand here.
So, so as you rightly said, it all started with GE, and one of the story that our CEO also tells was like it's all the customer connects that eventually led us to various other departments and so on. So I think whenever a company focus on the current verticals, at the same time we also diverse into getting into multiple verticals. And as you rightly said, Geo was the first customer, and I think if I remember the story correctly, I think our first A&D customer was as early as 99 or 2000.
Okay,
So it started off with the diversification, going into multiple verticals, and then how we can spread. And it also started, if you closely observe, we started off as an analysis. I mean, when Ajit Prabhu has first formed the company, there were a group of engineers working on structural analysis of some components for GE. So, from a concept point of view or from a way it is executed, it is exactly the same that happens in A&D as well, or it exactly happens the same in automotive as well. The components are different, how you analyze them is different, how you put together things is different. But if you look at it from an engineering product life cycle point of view, what you do is exactly the same. You define a product, kind of try to uh, create a product, create a design out of it, and then how do you structurally validate it, and then how do you put it to the market. So if you look at all the transportation energy, so most of in any manufacturing vertical, I would say, uh, would follow a similar structure. So I would say like probably we got into aerospace and defense through that medium because we are very closely connected uh, to the uh, to the way we work in the energy vertical.
right. Okay. So this actually also brings me to your the ODCs that you mentioned that you have in India. Apparently, I mean, from what I gather, is that about 65% of your 20,000 plus workforce comes from India or is based in India.
You're right.
Correct me
Yeah.
if I'm yeah,
No,
okay.
you're absolutely right.
So yeah, so if but one thing that struck me is that you don't do much A&D work in India for an Indian customer. What is the reason for it? Is there uh, I mean, let's first find out from you what is the reason for you not having a much or maybe even zero customer base from India.
So I wouldn't say it as a zero customer base. We have been supporting some of the Indian customers back in the days, but especially during COVID, we had to regroup on many other aspects on focusing business. So even today, we are working with some of the Indian customers. We are working on some of the RFPs that will float out in the coming days. So India as a sector is always a focus area, but primarily we started off focusing more on the global capability centers. And if you look at the world also, uh, GE has set up their global capability center almost like 25 years ago. So Pratt and Whitney has set up a few years ago.
Yeah.
Likewise, we have many other capability centers, be it Airbus, Boeing, or any other major player that you take. Uh, Prime reason for them to set up the capability center is the talent that is available here. So they're looking at India as a strategic player, especially in terms of R&D and in terms of execution. So we work closely with pretty much all of the global capability centers that we have in India, especially on A&D. So our focus has been more on the capability centers because the business is also being driven from their OEMs or the base plants based out of in the Europe or UK or in the US or even in Japan. So that has been a prime focus. But however, we have been working with some of our Indian defense players, and we have supported some of the projects, especially on the offset. And we have been in touch, and we have been doing quite a number of things. And we as a vertical also realize the importance of uh, the market potential of Indian aerospace and defense sector, the way it is growing, and then how it's going to shape the future of the world. So I wouldn't say it's not our focus area. It was we were supporting some of the customers back in the days. Something had to be regrouped during COVID, and then as you know, like pretty much every business has fallen during COVID, and then we have to uh, uh, kind of utilize the resources to kind of focus on where there is more work or more business potential. So that's how some regrouping has been done. But if you look at our future growth, one of the key area that we acknowledge and identify is surely India. Apart from the GCCs, we also want to closely work with Indian customers uh, and see how Quest Global can add value, be it in the defense or even in the space. And one of the biggest growing market would be the MROs because we already see a lot of news that GE has collaborated with HAL in setting up an MRO, and even our sister company ACUS collaborated with Magellan Aerospace to set up an MRO, and so on. So MRO is one key area that but we would like to focus in India as well because in the coming years, with the number of aircraft orders both Air India and Indigo has, so it would be ideal for any of the manufacturer to do the maintenance in India rather than shipping the parts to a different country and then taking care. So that's one sector where we are kind of heavily focused right now. And as I said, like in India, surely uh, I would say cannot be ignored because the way India has been growing and then the way it has been setting example to the world. So this market cannot be ignored. So I think
Right.
it all deals with the prioritization where you want to utilize your resources, where there's a market potential and so on.
So, what is your projection for the market potential as far as the Indian A&D sector is concerned?
So I mean I was recently reading a report. I think A&D sector as a whole has about something like 27 billion over a period of 2030 or 2033 is what I remember. But but what we kind of focus is on the ER&D spend because we are a pure play engineering services provider, so we
Yeah.
don't do manufacturing. So all of that market doesn't get applicable to us. So what we actually focus is on the total ER&D spend by all the major players. So if you just look at the ER&D spend, I think there's about 85 billion ER&D spend, and then out of which about 11 billion is the outsourced spend. So wherein the work is outsourced to suppliers like us in terms of getting and what we do today compared to the market potential out there is way huge. So I would say we have a lot of potential to grow as a vertical, and I think that's where our vision strategies, what we want to become as a company by 2030 and so on, will play a major role in defining how we want to grow in this market.
Right. So, compared with your competitors, what is your global, share in the entire market, indie market that you're referring to currently? And whom do you see as your potential competitors in India?
So,
You came from one of them, I believe.
so if we actually look at Quest Global, it is in the global top 10 engineering players, you would see Quest Global for sure, because it's the kind of impact that Quest Global has been making in the market for years together. And when it comes to competition, so there are multiple ways to look at it. One, what are the areas we are focusing versus our competitor is focusing versus for example, if you take a system integrator or a bigger companies wherein their focus is more on software implementation and so on. So we don't it would not be appropriate to compare with them because what we do and what they do is completely different. They they may have an engineering wing, which is really good, but our focus is completely on engineering. And as I said, like we utilize digital to solve engineering problems. So that's how we position ourselves. And rather than calling it as competition, I would say uh, I think there's enough market for multiple people to play here. So how do we differentiate ourselves is what I look at. So and when I say differentiate, any of the company will not survive if they don't differentiate. It's the basic principle of any business, right? So that's where our focus has been. So if I understand, I mean, my understanding of Quest Global over the last year or so uh, is especially emphasized on how do we differentiate ourselves. I keep hearing this word from our leaders very often. Even if me or one of my team goes back to discuss with our global business head on some opportunity, there are some basic questions that they ask. One, what is the customer problem that we are solving? So nobody talks about how many people engagement are we going to get because of this. Nobody talks about that. That's an interesting thing. What they all talk about is what is the customer problem that we are solving? What metrics are we going to affect? What KPIs of the customer are we going to affect by taking up this, or by our solution is going to affect? Third, what kind of investments are required to enable it? Because the company wants to enable. And then the fourth one is what is our differentiation? I know even our competition keeps closely working with customers, and then they know our customers really. What is our differentiation? So these are the four key questions I always keep hearing from our leaders. So I think that's how the differentiation also comes in, because I've been in the market, I mean, in the industry for about 20 years. So unless we differentiate ourselves, I don't think there's no point in having a customer meeting. So especially if you go for a customer meeting, so two things I'm already always worried about is one, the promises we made in the past, did we meet them or not? If we did not meet them, it's better we close the action items and then request for a meeting. Second, if you're talking about new business, the first thing the customer would ask is, how are you going to help me? Or how are you differentiating yourself to help me? I have five others or six other suppliers also saying the same thing. So unless we don't go with a differentiation, I don't think we'll stay in the market. So I would say that's where Trust Global has the potential, especially in terms of coming up with different solutions. See, for example, when we talked about the ODCs, we have a playbook of different types of engagement that we can do with the customer. And this comes from the rich heritage history of Quest Global. So they document all the good things that happen, and they also share how you should not pursue a certain thing. So we have playbooks of all of this. So when new leaders or new engineers comes in, you don't have to start from scratch. You have a bundle library of data that the team has built, including the learnings from our CEO. So if you just look at the playbook for ODC, there are 7 or 8 different methods of how you can add value. ODC is just one of them. So when we look at the customer problem and then we try to go with the solution, so these are some of the things that act as guides for all of us to pursue a particular opportunity or particular thing. So so I would say, like, I mean, I don't want to be too blatant about saying like there are no competitors and stuff, but I would uh, politely say that yeah, we do. I think uh, competition keeps us alive, I would say, and at the same time, because they are the ones who would say like, if you don't do right, we are going to take over your work, right? So I would keep it that way. So we keep a close watch on our competition to make sure that we are doing better than them. So that's how I would put it. And then, as I said, like from the DNA of Quest Global, there are certain things that are coming in. So I think we worry more about these principles rather than the competition, because when your leader asks you like what is the problem that you're going to solve, and I say like no, the customer came back just with 10 people work, it doesn't sync there, right? So first I have to be responsible more to the company that I'm working, so that uh, we follow the principles, core values of the company.
Hmm. Okay. So I also want you to touch upon three topics which I've heard when I've started learning about your company, Quest Global. Sustainable aviation, then there is digital MRO, and there is next generation R&D programs. Can you just touch upon these three subjects
Sure.
and what you do actually in these three areas, if you could just let me know?
Sure. So as we look at the global warming and uh, everything that's going on with the climatic changes, so pretty much every A&D customer has signed up for uh, the sustainable goals for 2030 and then also 2050. So there are quite a number of things that various customers are working, especially in the R&D phases, be it hybrid electric hydrogen or pure hydrogen or pure electric. And then there's also sustainable aviation fuel, SAF, that is
Yeah.
also being heavily used. But all of these, I mean, from an R&D perspective, of the sustainability, even if you look at any of the aircraft or engine R&D cycle, typically it takes 10 to 15 years to start, validate, test it, and then come into the market. So whatever we are going to do on the sustainability today, especially on the new aircrafts or the new engines, everything, we are not going to see anything in 2030 or before. I think it's only going to be after 2030 or even later. But in the meantime, how are we going to address the sustainability is going to play a major role. So we have different scope of emissions, scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. So which areas are we going to affect? So from our side, the way we try to add to sustainability is right from the design phase itself. So uh, how do I use less material so that it's more green? And then there is also a concept of green engine, green aircraft, which means that we are not using certain kind of materials, certain kind of sprays that are not eco-friendly. So this all starts from the design phase itself, on how you can optimize, how you can reduce the overall material of the part, so that in the first place you don't overuse something. And then throughout the engineering phases, one other thing about sustainability is also about uh, how long the part can be there in the air. So, for example, if I have to replace the part every 2 years or every 1 year, I'm using more material, and I'll have to recycle the existing part so that it doesn't go waste, right? So the repairability is what we also focus on. How can we reuse the parts and keep them in the air for a longer time? So these all come from the engineering aspects, and then also in the manufacturing side. So we are trying to bring in Industry 4.0 principles, how you can be more energy efficient. We are also bringing predictive maintenance with technologies. So predictive maintenance is again about how you predict failures even before it happens. So if there's a machine that's running, you're adding sensors to it and then grabbing data from the sensors and then
Yeah.
trying to identify parameters where temperatures are high or pressures are high, and how can we optimize the maintenance cycle and identify a problem even before it happens. Similarly, we do the same thing in the aftermarket as well, the predictive maintenance of the engines or the aircraft. So we track the live data while the engines or the aircrafts are flying, so that we prepare the maintenance grounding even before a problem occurs, or if there is a problem, how fast you can get it done. So one at the design phase, so we bring sustainability as a parameter in terms of the trade study that we do during the design phase itself. So like how we say, like, okay, design one has more cost by $100, design two has less weight by 10 pounds or so and so. Having sustainability also as one of the parameter is going to be a great uh, help we do for the nature and for ourselves. So, and wherever technology can be used to optimize, these are the things that we kind of focus. So, for example, even in uh, one of the manufacturing processes wherein the parts after the manufacturing has to be inspected. The typical inspection takes a huge number of hours, and then it kinds of consumes so much of an energy. So we are trying to bring in AML to and vision analytics to kind of automate that complete process of doing it in lesser time. So uh, at the end, what we are all trying to do is one, we are trying to solve a particular problem, but at the same time, we are also looking at a sustainability point of view, saying like, okay, if you actually keep sustainability as a parameter, you're also reducing the overall energy consumption by so and so. So
Correct.
this is how we try to take care in our day-to-day engineering activities. And at the same time, we are working with all our customers on all their R&D programs, especially on all the newer programs that are coming, be the performance improvements, weight optimizations, sustainability programs, and so on. So that's how we as Quest Global try to add towards the sustainability as a primary parameter. And then when we also look at one of the key challenges in the aero industry, most of our factories are still based on paper. And even back in the days when I was working, supporting one of the aero engine OEM, so that was a time when they were moving to an advanced PLM. So this was like 20 years ago. But even after 20 years, we still see some of the companies where we're still heavily dependent on paper. So this is where the digital quotient comes in. So though we call about digital MRO, we also see it at the manufacturing side. So both are something similar. So how you convert instructions, put it on a paper, and then how this paper is being revised or reused for all the activities that we do in the maintenance flow. So that's where we are trying to bring in digital to see how we can optimize all of this. And then by optimizing it, as you know, data is the new oil. How can we use data to create more efficiency or more actionable insights is what we are trying to focus on. So first first thing that happens with everything is first try to create the data. So we focus on the digitization part. Digitization is about converting paper to a digital format. And then we focus on the digitalization part. Now that the data is in a digital format, how can I bring in digital tools, technology to kind of look at uh, nuances that a human eye is unable to find out? So that's how we try to bring in the digital MRO or the digital manufacturing into the overall picture. So, for example, like we have built a digital control tower for one of the MRO process for an engine customer. So what it basically does is it has a complete mapping of each and every process across the complete chain of activities, and you would have these control towers in big TVs and stuff. So you would be able to see if there is a problem at a particular line or an issue at a particular place right away. You don't have to go back and then start looking for data. Everything is kind of visible. The dashboards display the real-time metrics. They would say if there's a problem, or it would even track the overall turnaround time to fix a particular thing. So it's more about creating that visibility that is lacking in the system. And secondly, how do we get away from paper? Again, when we get away from paper, again, it's one of the sustainability
Yeah,
thing there.
absolutely.
So yeah, so I mean, if you look at the typical MRO process, so we have these digital tech manuals that comes from the OEMs, and all of these tech manuals are prepared as an instruction sheet by one of the engineers in the MRO float. So, for example, if a aero engine has 10,000 parts, think about the number of instruction sheets one has to prepare. And once you prepare this instruction sheet, every time the engine comes for an overhaul, you take printouts of these sheets, and then
Yeah,
the engineers or the technicians work on it, sign on them, and then somebody else has to again scan them and then put it as a record because uh, in the aero industry, as you know, like everything has to be recorded and
yeah,
be available for the next few years or 10, 20 years to make sure that everything is done in the appropriate way. So if you actually look at the human element here, there's so much of activity that goes on which can be optimized. we're not just talking about time, we're also talking about the efficiency of doing it. Because every quarter a new tech manual comes in. Means in that whole 1,000 pages or 20,000 pages document, some revisions have come, and then somebody has to re-review this and then again update the op sheets or the pine cards or task cards to make sure that it is still the latest version. But if you actually put all of this into a digital format, a software can actually convert all of these into a task cards. And of course, as I said, we always use human in the loop as a medium to convey technology. So the software converts all of this information, gives it to the SME. The SME reviews, yes, is it making sense? Is it appropriate? Uh, are we performing the required checks? And then they would sign off saying like, yeah, okay, task card one is ready for usage now. And we could also bring in iPads or bring in visual mediums to for engineers or technicians on the floor to actually do it in real time. See, the way we can use technology today is uh, back in the days when I first read one of the engine assembly procedures, it would say step one, put it on the table. Step two, put part A onto part B at so and so position, and all of that. And when we're getting into complex mechanisms, complex systems, at times we might miss what the reader assumed versus what actually is there on the text,
Yeah.
because not every time the visualization is the same. So now we have AR technologies wherein in real time I can build the instructions in real time. So I can wear the glasses, I can see all the parts that are required for engine assembly, and then it would guide me. Okay, step one, pick part A. I can pick it in digital world. I can pick it. I can start assembling it. I can look at the nuances of putting a bolt or various other aspects. So, which means like I'm training an engineer faster than what it was required. Probably in the earlier days, after doing 3 or 4 times, probably I would have perfected it. Now, there are digital mediums wherein we can reduce the overall time for training, thereby aiding people to do their job better.
Yeah.
And then
Simulated training is probably the future. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And I've seen in one of our Indian manufacturing company wherein they were using this technology for welding a particular component.
Hmm.
So, so it was very interesting to see the kind of evolution the technology is bringing, and it's in a good way. So, uh, in a good way of how we can embrace it, how fast we can learn particular things. At the same time, it's also identifying those defects early on, right? So, when I'm assembling this, then I might find something, this instruction doesn't make sense because if I do exactly like this, it doesn't fit. So I'm finding a defect early on by doing this and then reaching out to the OEM saying like, looks like something doesn't fit in here. Can you please check? So I think that's where the technology is heading. And from a digital MRO perspective, there's so much we can do in the MRO space or even in the digital manufacturing space. So
Hmm.
one is going away from paper. Second is how we manage these task cards or the op sheets digitally, how we sign off them digitally and then store it uh, digitally so that it's always there for the audits. And then at the same time, we also can do lot many things on, for example, supply chain. Traditionally, if you look at how spares is managed, there were some traditional formulas that were used to manage spares. But over the years, uh, we all realized that you can't use the same formula for everything. And that's where the AI comes into picture. We have enough data to feed to AI and say, like, tell me what parts are required for the next overhaul.
Hmm.
And we could always perfect the process and then get these parts ready on time before the aircraft or the engine is there in the maintenance floor. And likewise, we could do many things on the cost analytics. We could see where the cost overruns are or where the money is leaking. And then we could use technologies like RPA to kind of automate the overall process of payments also, like PO creations, PO processing, and everything can be automated using technologies like RPA. So there's huge potential of what we can
Good.
do. And this is where we have a technology excellence group within Quest Global, which nurtures technologies. So their prime focus is on identifying the technologies that make a difference for us. And uh, and one of the key things that we do every year is whenever a new technology comes or whenever there are different newer things coming in, we identify use cases in the way we work and see how technology can help to do the same activity in a better way.
Mm,
So, for example, today if I'm doing an activity in 20 hours, can I challenge myself to do the same thing in 10 hours using technology and use the remaining hours to perfect the solution or perfect the result? Because at
mm,
times, what happens is, again, I give the example of my earlier days when I was the structural when I was doing structural analysis. So we had a requirement of creating a 100-slide presentation. So
mm,
we are so busy in doing the analysis, getting the results, and then creating the presentation, and we hardly have time to review what is there in the material. And we have very few hours or very less time to actually see uh, what is that we put together. Is it making sense or not? And at times, like we are rushed into delivery, but there are scenarios wherein we identify a problem and then we request the customer for more time to fix it and go back. But just think about how technology can be a differentiator. So if it is able to reduce all your mundane work and then give you a package where
yeah.
you have sufficient amount of time to review, I think the engineering brains can do much better work by analyzing it and saying like, yeah, this is making sense. This stress or this temperatures are not making sense. And we also have enough time to go back to our internal disciplinary teams to bring them onto the table and say like, see, this is not making sense, or how do we better this result? So I think that's where we're trying to use technology to bring in. And as I talked about TEG, so again, I'll go back to the problem. So specific problems in MRO. So from an industry perspective, we know that there are certain problems in the MRO space that can be addressed with technology or with Quest Global coming in and then solving that. So even today, like when we go after an MRO customer, while we have a packaged solution, a menu card of solutions that we can do for a customer, but we still focus on what is that we want to solve, because only then we'll be able to add value. Otherwise, it'll just be like a menu card when you go to a restaurant. So you have so many things, and we have to keep looking at what to choose. So so while we have all the services that we can do, and we also have good teams that can deliver this, our focus again goes back to the problem. So
Very nice.
we emphasize on the problem. If you know the problem, because if you know the problem, I think we can solve it. Without knowing the problem, we would just be providing resources and then hanging out there, and we don't know what we are doing. And as you know, like we all want some challenges, right?
Yeah.
Unless, so end of the day, when you go back to bed and sleep, and if that was the day where you solved or the final deliverable was made, solving a particular problem, I think uh, that's the day I would sleep better compared to the remaining days.
Right. Great. Let this be my last question. What are your expansion plans in India at this point in time? Where do you intend to move? What do you intend to do? What is your workforce plan for India right now?
Yeah. So from our growth strategy point of view, of course, I can't reveal the numbers, but I would tell it in percentages. So
Yeah.
from a growth strategy point of view, again, all our vision strategy is based on the data that is available in the market. So we have done enough research of the market, enough emphasis on what is available as a A&D market that we can focus on, and then who are our focus customers that we want to closely work with or go after. And as I said, like fewer customer, deeper relations. So we are not what do you call very revenue focused, but it's more customer focused, I would say. So looking at all of those aspects, we have created a strategy of what we wanted to be by 2030. So we wanted to be at least growing by 3x just for our vertical, aerospace and defense. We want to, which is ambitious, but I think there is enough potential to achieve that. And to achieve that, we have to grow by 3 times at least, or even if we use technology, at least we have to grow by 2 times to our current strength. So we are about 3,600 engineers globally for aerospace and defense. We have about 900 to 1,000 engineers supporting in India. And then, as you see, the GCC market is heavily growing. The defense spending is heavily growing in India. The space market has become privatization, and then more private players are now able to play a role there. And then, interestingly, we also see many urban air mobility companies, startups coming in India. And then uh, I think with all of this, it's only a growth that we can potentially see in the coming years. And to realize our vision, as I said, like we surely have to grow by twice or thrice at a minimum to uh, capture the growth in the market that we see. And I would say, like, I think being there at the right time and the right place is more important. So I think I'm there at the right place for sure. And with times ahead, I think we are all going to see the growth journey, both for Quest Global and also in the Indian A&D space, I would say.
Thank you very much, Venkat Sai, for your time, wisdom, and the opportunity to talk to you. It's a pleasure being with you, and hopefully we get to interact more in the coming days and months to come. I
Sure,
wish
sure,
you all the best.
Bipindra.
Also, wish you a lot of success in your targets that you have
Thank you.
put yourself before. Right?
Yeah, thank
Thank
you,
you so much.
Bipindra.